This is an important day. The President will release his budget for 2014. While it's late, it's welcome. We now have 3 budgets in place. The Senate has voted on a budget, the House has voted on a budget, and the President will be bringing his budget before us. And we now have, I think, the outlines of the beginning of a discussion and a debate and action that must take place in the next several months. We have wide differences in terms of how we need to get to where we need to get to, but at least now we have something to work off of. And I am just urging my colleagues and urging the President that we work together to achieve what is necessary to put this country on a path to fiscal health. It can be over a period of years. It can be measured out in terms of where we now are in the economy and what needs to be applied now versus what needs to be applied later. But I have said over and over from this platform and others that if we do not incorporate discipline in our spending, clearly out of control spending that continues to grow year after year and grow by deficit each year and grow by borrowing each year, putting our country in an ever more difficult position. If we do not include disciplined spending within this budget, we won't achieve what we need to achieve. Secondly, if we do not address our out-of-control mandatory spending, we will never achieve what we want to achieve, and we will continue to find ourselves in ever deeper holes. The previous speaker, Senator Portman from Ohio, talked about the urgency of our need to make structural reforms in the mandatory spending programs. Now, those who say, oh, you can't touch this, this has been promised to the American people, and we cannot begin to even address this issue. These should be exempt. Those are simply individuals that are immune to the reality of the current situation that stands before us. And that is that these programs are going broke. They are unsustainable under their current rules, under the current financial measures that are putting money into the programs and with the money going out. And so those organizations, and I won't name them here, but I will at some point in time, I think we all know who they are, those organizations that are flooding seniors with mailings saying, don't let them touch your Social Security, don't let them touch one dime of your Medicare, you deserve every penny and every penny more. They're lying to those people because they simply are telling them that they're going to be in a situation where their benefits are going to have to be reduced dramatically in just a few years down the line in order to keep the programs from going insolvent. And so if you really want to care for and look out for those who are depending on Social Security and depending on Medicare in their later years, we need to stand up now, tell them the truth, and do what is necessary to save those programs. Standing by and doing nothing, standing by and listening to the outside interest groups who are trying to scare them to death means that you are denying those people the future income benefits that they are receiving under Social Security and Medicare. And so let's have the courage to stand up and do what is right, because we're doing what is right for the very people that are being told that what we're trying to do here is to take something away from them. Now, someone said on this budget coming forward, and we don't have all the details, that, well, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. I would prefer to say there's the good, there's the not so good, and there's the why are we doing this in the first place. But however we categorize this, let's first of all give the President some credit for taking that first small step toward raising the issue of mandatory spending. And my understanding is that the President will suggest a modification of the Consumer Price Index, which is used to provide for increases each year in these various programs. Now, once again, we get this doomsday, you can't touch this, and this is an index that is not correctly applied. We're simply trying to bring this in line with the reality of what the actual cost of living is for our seniors. And yet even suggesting this gets the printing presses rolling at all the interest groups and send us $10 and we'll save your Social Security going and everything else, even this correction, which the president has proposed, is being criticized, which is beyond description in terms of how people try to take advantage of our seniors and those on these programs. But let's give the president credit for putting this in play. It's a small step. It's not nearly as far as we need to go. There are other structural reforms that we have to address, but let's at least acknowledge that the president has come forward with something substantial here as a modest first step. Secondly, though, the not so good. The call for new spending, new stimulus. I mean, we've been through this. We've had nearly $1 trillion of stimulus, about 9/10 of which is now documented as not stimulating, but turning out to be a poor government-selected so-called investment in the future that has defied, that the market has basically said it doesn't work. It doesn't work this way. So we see solar manufacturing plants closing all over the world. We see wind farms being raised through subsidies, and yet they cannot connect to the grid, and it ignores the new discoveries in natural gas and fossil fuel reserves here in America. The cost benefit is way out of balance. So when I hear the word, now it's called investment, not stimulus anymore, investment, it's another code word for stimulus, and what that means, it is a code word for we will decide where this money goes. And the problem is the political animal gets its hands around it, and the money goes to beneficiaries or supporters for political reasons. Anyway, government shouldn't be in this business. Now, that's the not so good, because it includes $1.5 trillion of additional net federal spending. And at a time when our spending is out of control, how can you come forward with a budget that adds more than $1.5 trillion of new spending, calls it investment, when it's really just stimulus? Hey, we've been there, we've done that, it doesn't work, so why are we going there? And lastly, why are some of these proposals in the budget at all, such as the new taxes that were suggested by my colleague from Ohio? Over $1 trillion, well over $1 trillion of new taxes on the American people, when we just went through that 3 months ago with one of the largest tax increases in history. Has anyone ever seen an increase in the economy through an increase in taxes? If people were taking less money out of people's paychecks, does this result in more consumer spending, which helps our economy? Adding new taxes, a new tax burden to the American economy, when has that ever created a job? We have staggering numbers of people who are dropping out and giving up finding jobs. And so our unemployment rate, that is so-called official rate, is phony. It's absolutely phony, because the people withdrawing from the workplace because they've given up ever finding a job are simply changing the numbers, so it makes it look like we're making progress, and as a result, we're not making progress. Mr. President, I see my time is nearing expiring, and I see the Majority Leader has come to the floor, and so I want to just conclude that we are at a historic time. We are at a crossroads in terms of the future of this country. And this is the time when we need to put aside partisan interests, political interests, special interest groups, and stand up and do what is right for the future. And what is the future? Well, as someone famously said, the future is now. The future is now for all those people out of work. The future is now for all those college kids graduating without a job to go to. The future is now for our senior citizens who have seen some of their savings eroded through this recession that we've had. The future is now for doing what is necessary to put this country on the right track to prosperity. And so let us work together. I'm willing. I've told the President, I've told my colleagues, I'm willing to work with you. I know we'll have to make some compromises.
Time has expired.
Mr. President, the time is now. Let's seize this opportunity.